Good morning. Welcome to our special event, Uniting Nations for a Family-Friendly World. Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends of the family. It is my great pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the member states of the group of Friends of the Family, with co-sponsoring civil society organizations, CFAM, the Center for Family and Human Rights, Family Watch International, and Foreign Service Fellowship. We are gathered here to celebrate the family, the natural and fundamental group unit of society, and to unite nations to further promote and protect the family. My name is Afaf Kanja. I am a media and communications specialist, former United Nations resident correspondent, and former spokeswoman for the President of the United Nations General Assembly. And I am delighted to serve as your moderator today. On a personal note, I am the youngest of a Chaldean Roman Catholic family of 8 children. I was born in Baghdad, Iraq, and came to the United States with my family at the tender age of 4 years old. It is because of my mother and father that I am able to speak Aramaic fluently. The language that we learn is that Jesus spoke himself. I embrace the deep-rooted traditions and customs of the rich Middle East culture. It is my mother who taught me unconditional love, compassion, forgiveness, and spirituality, and through whom I was first introduced to the profound presence of God in my life. It is my father who gave me the courage to live with an open heart by watching the decisions he made in his own life, even after being heartbroken and when trust was broken. He gave me the love of nature, seeing him carefully tend to his garden and the fruit trees every day, a tradition he brought from what was once a beautiful Baghdad to sunny Southern California. My brothers never took any drugs or even smoked cigarettes because they were too busy working hard to ensure that their younger siblings would in fact get a higher education, and that Mama and Baba would be taken care of as they aged. Growing up, my sisters were my role models and my best friends, providing self-esteem and confidence, essential to one's success in life. Family, for me, means making up shortly after fighting, holding on strong to one another because family is the source of ever-flowing love, security, and protection. It is my earthly foundation and solid strength. The family is the first place we get educated and where we either witness the world full of love or full of fear. And this in itself has the power to shape the rest of our lives. Pope Francis, whom I had the magical blessing of meeting just a few days ago in Rome for the first time, affirms that the family remains the essential cell of society and the church. I believe this is true regardless of our faith or our religious affiliations. Sadly, the family has not always received the attention it deserves in international policy. Families are a constituency that is underrepresented in national and international governance structures. Worse yet, there is increasing evidence reflecting the demise of marriage as well as a devaluation of the family unit. Yet, there is hope. And our event today is proof of a shifting in gears and a shining of a spotlight. We hope to be able to show you a video later on in this morning, but for now, I have the distinct honor and pleasure of introducing the President of the United Nations Economic and Social Council, His Excellency, the UN Ambassador of the Republic of Korea to the United Nations, Mr. Oh Jun. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kanja. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great privilege for me to address this special high-level event on the United Nations for a family-friendly world. In fact, as president of ECOSOC, I spend a lot of time in this chamber, but I never seen this room as family-friendly as this morning, with sounds of children laughing and shouting. It is particularly encouraging that the theme of this year's observance of the International Day of Families focuses on Sustainable Development Goal 3 on ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for all at all ages. Sustainable Development Goal 3 is a testament to the interdependence of health and development. The family plays a critical role in promoting SDG 3 as well as other goals. As such, the family should be supported by family-friendly policies and programs, such as provision of social services, including health care, child and elder care, paid maternity, paternity, and parental leave, and water and sanitation. The achievement of SDG 3 will require an integrated vision in policy making and implementation across all sectors, actors, and levels. The integrated nature of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development provides the potential to create synergies across goals and targets. For example, the promotion of the health of girls and young women can help keep them in school and successfully transition to workforce. Also, labor productivity increases when family members enjoy full access to health care. Over the years, the Economic and Social Council convened special meetings to address global public health emergencies and promote a coordinated strategic response. These meetings addressed the outbreak of severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS, in 2003, avian flu in 2005, Ebola in 2014, and the Zika virus last February. One lesson learned from these emergencies is that sound and effective health systems are prerequisite for ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for all at all ages. The Economic and Social Council stands ready to support the implementation of SDG 3. The Commission for Social Development, a functional commission of ECOSOC, will continue considering issues pertaining to the family in the context of its follow-up to the World Summit for Social Development. As we continue working to realize the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, let us make sure that we work together to promote family-friendly policies and programs, not least with a view to leaving no one behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for putting this conversation into a very deep and critical and meaningful perspective for us. We will now hear the statement of the group of the Friends of the Family. I have the honor of inviting His Excellency, Mr. Valentin Rybakov, Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Belarus, to deliver a statement on behalf of the group of the Friends of the Family. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Excellencies, distinguished panelists, participants, ladies and gentlemen, I am privileged to intervene on behalf of the group of Friends of the Family, which now comprises 25 countries. It goes without saying that the family brings up its members, teaches to respect and to love one another, to be responsible, and to master the basics of human rights. The family forms a protective environment against external threats and gives hope for the future for all its members. Moreover, a person seeks to fulfill himself or herself in the name of family, in the name of children and parents. Today, I have the honor to introduce the statement of the group of friends. The statement is adopted to support the family, to mark the International Day of the Families, which is observed by the United Nations General Assembly since 1994. The family is a bearer of human rights and is an irreplaceable agent of social and economic development in every society. One of the first policy documents to signal that the family has a role to play in development was the Declaration on Social Progress and Development, proclaimed by the General Assembly resolution back in 1969. The family is also a key actor in the transmission of values within society that are vital for making the Sustainable Development Agenda a reality. In this regard, the group of friends would like to adopt as an outcome document the statement of the group of friends. This statement will be circulated as an official document of the 70th session of the United Nations General Assembly. In this statement, the group of friends reiterates its commitments to the provisions of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and binding international instruments, in particular the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which all recognize that the family is the natural and fundamental group unit of society and is entitled to protection by society and by the state. The statement stresses that equality between women and men, women's equal participation in employment, and shared parental responsibility are essential elements of a policy on the family. In its statement, the group of friends underlines the importance of strengthening intergenerational partnerships and solidarity among generations, and stresses the need in this regard to promote opportunities for voluntary, constructive, and regular interaction between young people and older generations in the family, in the workplace, and in society at large. The group of friends expresses its assurance that the family can also contribute to eradicating hunger, achieving universal primary education, promoting gender equality, and empowering women, reducing child mortality, improving maternal health, and combating HIV/AIDS, malaria, and other diseases. The statement reflects the acknowledgement of the role that the family plays as a contributor to sustainable development, and stress that it will be impossible to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Development and its promise that no one will be left behind unless the family is empowered to effectively and efficiently fulfill its role within society. The group of friends in the statement also recognizes the important role of civil society, including research institutes, academia, in advocacy, promotion, research, and policy making, and, as appropriate, evaluation of family policy development and capacity building. The group of friends reiterates its commitments to working together with other member states, the United Nations, and civil society to protect the family everywhere, and to adopt pro-family policies at all levels to secure a more safe and prosperous future for the family and all its members, in particular children. To conclude, I would like to congratulate all of you, all of us, with the International Day of the Families, which was observed yesterday, May 15th. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister, and thank you to the entire group of Friends of the Family. We are all grateful that you are so focused on ensuring that the family is a keystone in the efforts to achieve the 2030 Development Agenda. We will now hear statements of support for the family by religious leaders. Our cause indeed is very important. The very future of humanity depends on the family because it strikes at the very heart of what it is to be human. This is why the family is such a central element in so many religions. I have the pleasure of introducing Imam Shamsi Ali from the Jamaica Muslim Center in Queens, New York. Imam Shamsi Ali is an internationally respected Islamic scholar and religious leader. He is an interfaith bridge builder in New York and beyond, and has been recognized by his tireless efforts to build understanding and cooperation between peoples of all religion. It is my distinct honor and privilege to introduce you, Imam Shamsi Ali. You have the floor.
Thank you so very much. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, brothers and sisters, I'm truly honored and delighted to be here this morning to speak on behalf of the family. As a father of 6, this subject is too much in my heart. It's very personal. So allow me to speak out of my mind and my heart on this very crucially important issue that we are discussing this morning. In our understanding, family basically, as the moderator mentioned earlier, is a very natural part of our human's life and human's institution. In fact, it is the oldest human institution. It reminds us that when God created Adam, and we share this with our Jewish and Christian friends, God placed Adam in paradise, if you may remember. But I don't know how many of you read the Bible. God did not create the wife yet. And imagine Adam was in paradise, he could not even enjoy the paradise. In other words, that this is the first and the oldest institution in human's life. When you talk about nations, when you talk about countries, when you talk about different kind of institutions, nothing else is more important than the family institution itself. Secondly, it is well known that the cornerstone of the society is the family. There is a word of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that mi'yar, the measurement of any society, is rest in the family. You can see what kind of the society we live in by seeing the way of the society lives their lives. And that's why we can measure the modern society where we live in by measuring the society, the family that we are having in this modern and 21st century. Third, I think any discussion that's taking place around about sustainable development cannot continue without discussing the importance of the family. And I'm sure many of you agree, if not all of you agree, that the most important purposes of development in any society is to achieve, to pursue happiness. But the very beginning of that pursuit of happiness must happen at home. For my brothers and sisters who speak Arabic language, you know that home in Arabic is called sakan or maskan. And that word comes from sakinat. The Holy Quran states that God, among the God sign, that He created for you spouses so they can find sakinat, litaskunu ilayha. So they can find rest, peace, tranquility, and joy in one another. So peace, tranquility, or pursuit of happiness must begin at home. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, for example, emphasized that home must be our own paradise on this planet. Bayti Jannati, my home is my paradise. But more importantly, I'd like to end with this because this is a very brief statement. I think we all agree, and I think the moderator also mentioned, that the very first madrasa, if you may have heard this word, the very first school in human's life is home itself. And let me just, as a man, mention this very clearly, that our sisters play even more important, crucial, important role on this. Because our mothers is the first-hand teachers at home. So our first school must happen at home. And that's why if you see today what happens in our world, we are on the brink of generational loss. Our generation in this 21st century is known as lonely and angry generation. Oftentimes they tend to be very violent. And because they lose the education at home. And that's why if we are talking, and we are there to talk about extremism in our society, I think one of the most important ways to handle the tendencies of being extremists in society by encouraging the family to play such an important role to educate our generation. So let me end with this. It is clearly understood that this is a very huge responsibility. In time that the family institution is being threatened, I think all levels must take the responsibility to take care of the family. But let me end with this note. Freedom and human responsibility must be accompanied with responsibility. And one of that responsibility is responsibility towards the family. Being free and respect human rights doesn't necessarily mean undermining the importance of family in our society. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Imam Shamsi, in particular for honing in on the fact that the peace and the stability and the status, if you will, of the family, of the nucleus family, is a reflection of societies and beyond. Next, we will hear from His Most Reverend Bishop John O'Hara, Episcopal Vicar of the Archdiocese of New York. Bishop John O'Hara is the Episcopal Vicar in Southern Manhattan and Staten Island. Bishop O'Hara was appointed by Cardinal Dolan as a member of the Ecumenical Interfaith Committee of Religious Leaders and has been active in interfaith dialogue since he first began his ministry as a priest in Staten Island, building bridges of communication and understanding among the island's very diverse faith communities. Bishop O'Hara, I am humbled to give you the floor.
Thank you very much, and I'm humbled to be in a place that I never thought I would be in my life, to be with all of you this morning. And I bring the greetings and prayers of His Eminence Timothy Cardinal Dolan, the Archbishop of New York, who is well aware of the fact that we're all together discussing this most important issue. You have his support, enthusiastic, and his backing and that of the Archdiocese of New York. And thank you for giving me the floor for just a few moments. I was ordained to the priesthood by a great man, the late John Cardinal O'Connor, and he very often referred to a talk that was given by the late Emmanuel Cardinal Suhard, who was the Archbishop of Paris in that time leading up to the Second World War. He saw the world falling apart. He saw totalitarianism on the rise, and he ascended the pulpit of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris on an afternoon not long before the beginning of the Second World War, and he challenged those 10,000 people who were in Notre Dame Cathedral that they had a responsibility to bring order out of chaos. I will repeat that again, to bring order out of chaos. We know what happened. We know the tragedy of the Second World War, but we also know that in the Security Council of this great house, there hangs a magnificent mural that is created after the tragedy of World War II, where the sacredness of human life is just tossed aside, where the individual means nothing, where families are destroyed, where everything comes apart. And what is the message of that mural? That true restoration of society comes through the family. We need to rediscover that again, a reminder to us of the centrality of family. A family is central in our diverse religious traditions. Without the family, we lose the sacredness of each and every human person. We lose our identity. And in this search for lasting peace and true harmony, we're never going to get there, because that lasting peace and true harmony is built on the solid rock of the family. Pope Francis has said so well and is witnessing very effectively the need to strengthen and celebrate the family in trying times. What a challenge it is. I'm happy that someone mentioned before that the Pope speaks about the family as being the essential cell of society. Oh, I think the words of Cardinal Suhard ring true to us today as a challenge that in an era when the sacredness of the family, of husband and wife and children and life is threatened, redefined, distorted, we need, from whatever religious tradition or of no religious tradition, to come together to bring that order out of chaos. Otherwise, we're going to be building our society on sand and it collapses. We need to build our society in the future on solid rock. That rock is the family. That's the challenge that you and I face. Thank you so very much.
The true restoration of the world comes from the family. If I may echo your very brilliant words. Thank you so much, Bishop O'Hara. We now turn to Pastor Jim Garlow of Skyline Church. Pastor Jim Garlow is the senior pastor of Skyline Church, if I may add, in my hometown of San Diego, California. Pastor Garlow is the author of 15 books and is heard daily on over 850 radio outlets in a one-minute commentary called The Garlow Perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to give you Pastor Garlow. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. It's a special honor to be here. I wish I'd brought some San Diego weather with me here. Honored to be here. What really is the big deal about the family? Why are we meeting? Why are we saying what we're saying? What's the big deal about marriage itself? In the Bible, Genesis begins with the marriage of a man and a woman. It closes with the book of Revelation with the wedding of a bride and a groom. In order to accommodate the construct of marriage, the early pages of Genesis begin with the account of the creation of a male and a female. Now we know, as Christians, I'm a Christian evangelical, that God is neither male nor female. The writers, in trying to describe God, will use characteristics that we historically associate with maleness and characteristics we historically associate with femaleness. For example, the writers will talk about God from the standpoint of being the strength that he brings or the protective coverage. Or sometimes the writers speak of God using distinctly feminine characteristics, for example, in Deuteronomy and Isaiah and Psalms, where it speaks of God as giving birth, it speaks of God as holding a newborn baby to the breast to nourish that newborn baby. So we have a wide spectrum in terms of description of the nature of God. In Genesis 17, the word that is used there in the Hebrew is El Shaddai, as a name for God, a hyphenated name for God. El meaning strength and mountain, Shaddai meaning breast that nourishes a newborn baby. So when we say we're made in the image of God, we recognize that a male by himself does not represent the full spectrum of the image of God, nor does a female by herself represent the full spectrum of the image of God. Now, the traditional view is that God created Adam, took a rib, and created Eve when we read the Genesis account. But I want to take you into the Hebrew text because I think the spiritual import in the Hebrew text gives us something more significant, more profound, and really quite gripping in terms of the sacredness of the family and the sacredness of marriage itself. When we see the word Adam for the first time in Scripture, it's not a capital A in the Hebrew. It's small a, Adam. Adam means humanity. So when you see God creating Adam, think of God creating Adam, humanity or humankind. That's the way the story actually begins in the Hebrew text. Don't think of a male being created, then a rib taken and a female. It appears to us in the Hebrew text, it appears to me in the Hebrew text, that what it's actually saying is God created Adam, the small a, humankind. He looked at Adam, humankind, and it's the first time God uses the language, it's not good. Every other time in the creation account, he said, that's good. But in Genesis, at this one occasion, he pauses and he says, that's not good. What is not good about it? He says, it's not good that it's alone. But the Hebrew translation might be rendered, it's not good, it's as one. It's not good, it's one. And at that point in the Hebrew text, we have what might be called the splitting of the atom. We have at this point the feminine characteristics taken aside, and what's left is the male characteristics. In the splitting of the atom, one might ask, well, what about the story of the rib? In the Hebrew text, the word for rib is the word Selah, or T-S-E-L-A. It actually means the half, or the part, or the side. And so God creates humanity, and he effectively halves humanity, and that's why the complementary halves of humanity are so sacred to God, because it's as they come back together in covenantal marriage that they now express the full spectrum, the full image of God. That accounts in part for the power of the sexual attraction. Let's take it further to the Hebrew terms Ish and Isha. Ish is the Hebrew word in the ancient text in Genesis for man. Isha is the word for woman. Now, there's an intriguing construction of those two words. They're almost identical. But there's one Hebrew letter in Ish that is not present in Isha. One Hebrew letter in man that's not present in woman. And there's also one Hebrew letter in Isha, the word for woman, that's not present in Ish, or for man. What are those? The letter that's present in the Hebrew for Ish, that's not present in Isha, woman, is the letter Yod. Picture Y. The Hebrew letter that's present in Isha, that's not in Ish, is the letter H, or Hey, we would say in the Hebrew. Yod Hey. Why is that important? Why would we care about that? Why about one letter that's in one and not in the other? Yod Hey forms the foundation for the word Yahweh, the Hebrew word for God, that is used 6,800 times in the Old Testament. In other words, as you have Ish and Isha coming together, as you have man and woman coming together, it forms Yahweh. It becomes the spectrum or the representation, the full spectrum or the full expression of the nature or the image of God. And that's why male and female, the foundation piece of the family, they complement each other or they fit within each other. There were 300 of us who attended a special conference at the Vatican called by Pope Francis a year and a half ago called complementarity, man and woman. Complementarianism is what each one of us have. As male and female, created by God, having been halved originally, and now those two halves of humanity come back together and form the sacredness of what God created. And what does it mean to be in the image of God? It means a reflector of God. What does God do? Well, one example would be God creates. A man and a woman, when they come together in covenantal love, in covenantal marriage, have procreational capacities. They're reflectors now of the image of God. That's Genesis. Let's take a flyover and go all the way to the book of Revelation. We said that Genesis begins with a marriage, and the book of Revelation ends with a wedding of a bride and a groom. In that particular text, we see that there's a description for Christians of Christ and the church coming together in the final marriage supper of the Lamb, a major wedding event. That's the depiction in the book of Revelation. We might tend to think wrongly that God looked down on human earth and he saw humans engaging in marriage, so he borrowed a metaphor, and he said, in order for them to understand the close of history, I'm going to borrow this metaphor called marriage, and we'll have marriage depicted as Christ and the church coming together. That's a backwards view. In reality, capital M, real marriage, is Christ and the church in the culmination of history. Small m marriage is kind of an hors d'oeuvres or an appetizer course. In other words, from a Christian perspective, looking at the scripture, the purpose of marriage on earth, in part, is to help us understand what the closure of history will be. So as I close, Paul in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 32, he depicted this exactly when he talked about a husband and a wife, and then he says it's a mystery. None of us can understand the nature of Christ and the church coming together in a marriage. We can't comprehend that. But we can comprehend a marriage of a husband and wife. And Paul said, what I'm speaking of is a mystery, and what I'm really depicting is the culmination of history. That is the closure of history, Christ and the church coming together as one. We even use language, marital bed language, consummation or climax of history. Some people say, well, why is there no marriage in heaven from a Christian perspective? It's because heaven ultimately is marriage, and that's the foundation piece. So why this is important to God, the Old Testament uses marriage to depict the nature of the image of God. The New Testament depicts marriage as an explanation of the closure of history when Christ and the church become one. It is profoundly sacred, and if I can be autobiographical in this final statement, is this. As the Imam referred to his family, each one of us up here or in this room, we care deeply, deeply about our own families. As our moderator spoke about her family, we all understand that. I was married for 42 years until my wife died 3 years ago of cancer. I was blessed to be remarried then 2 years ago. By my first marriage, I adopted 4 children. By my second marriage, I have 4 stepchildren, 8 children. And so now 7 grandsons and 2 granddaughters. And of all the things and the titles all of us go by in this room, the titles that mean the most to us by far, and the only one that will mean anything to us on our last breath on this earth, will be the title of husband, or the title of father, or the title of wife, or the title of mother. Those are the titles that are going to mean the most. Why is that? Because God has established that marriage and the family are profoundly sacred. Thank you so much for the privilege.
Thank you for so clearly and beautifully depicting and dissecting the story of creation and Genesis and beyond. Truly sacred. Thank you so much, Pastor. We will now hear a joint statement from civil society in support of the group of friends of the family. Ladies and gentlemen, these are organizations that work to strengthen and to protect the family that ordinarily cannot rely on government funds or the support of billionaire philanthropists. Therefore, many of them rely on volunteers. Yet they are working tirelessly for the most important cause there is. And they are enthusiastic that the group of friends of the family has decided to raise the profile of the family in UN policy. I now have the distinct pleasure of inviting Ms. Annie Franklin of the UN Family Rights Caucus to deliver a statement on behalf of civil society. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Distinguished guests, friends, children. I have the pleasure of delivering this statement of support for the group of friends of the family on behalf of hundreds of civil society organizations from around the world that are part of the platform Civil Society for Family, the UN Family Rights Caucus. We welcome the formation of a group of friends of the family at the United Nations, and we welcome this event. We are confident that the family will indeed unite nations in a common cause that is vital for societies and the international community as a whole. In the title of this event today suggests particularly to overcome poverty and protect the human rights of every human being without exception, including through the implementation of the 2030 Development Agenda. We affirm the importance of the family as natural and fundamental group unit of society and its irreplaceable role as a social and economic agent. We look forward to further efforts of the group of families to highlight the family as natural and fundamental groups of society and the need to ensure its international policies focus on the family and leverage its role as an agent of development. At this point, as it has already been done, I'd like to draw your attention to the beautiful image that you are familiar, many of you familiar with in the Security Council chamber, which envisions the family as the centerpiece of the United Nations project. Indeed, as Norwegian artist Per Lassen Grock beautifully depicted the family, a man, a woman, and a child, as the natural and fundamental group unit of society, and is the phoenix that regenerates societies from within. The family is a keystone of a prosperous, harmonious, and sustainable future. We affirm that the fundamental right of women and men to marry and found a family lies at the core of the obligations of UN member states towards the family. We sadly recognize that often men and women are unable to exercise their fundamental right to freely marry and found a family, and that families are torn apart because of lack of possibilities and opportunities, frustrating the dreams and hopes of women, men, and children. When this happens, society at large also suffers. We also affirm the fundamental human rights of each child to know and be cared for by his or her mother and father, as well as other core obligations flowing from this fundamental right, including the obligations of states with regards to enacting family reunification policies, the rights of children to a cultural and religious identity, and the prior rights of parents for the upbringing of their children. We recognize the profound transformation taking place in many societies where marriage and family formation are declining, and how the rights of children to know and be cared for by their parents is compromised daily by family failure and breakdown and new challenges in protecting the family. We especially note with great concern the hundreds of thousands of children, refugees, whose families have been torn apart by conflict, and call upon all nations to speedily assist in their reunification with their families. In this context, we especially welcome today the recent attention devoted to the family in UN resolutions by the Human Rights Council and the Economic and Social Council. We are confident that the group of Friends of the Family will cement these normative gains for the family going forward in order to rise to meet the many challenges of protecting the family in our world today. We look forward to increased support from the UN membership for the group of Friends of the Family in order to ensure the General Assembly and other United Nations bodies are able to dedicate the attention the family merits in international policy and support the efforts of member states in achieving the 2030 Development Agenda and fulfill their human rights obligations toward the family. The group of Friends of the Family is only just beginning. We are confident that its importance will grow in the years ahead as the challenge of protecting the family becomes even more clear. We stand by to assist member states and the UN system in identifying challenges to the family and ways to address them. I thank you.
Annie, thank you so much for your very encouraging message. We all look forward to what the group of Friends of the Family will accomplish in the coming months and years. These are indeed exciting and hopeful times for the family. We now turn to a declaration on the rights of children and their families. Dear friends of the family, we will now have the privilege of hearing a very special plea from those who have the most to lose if states are unable to fulfill their obligations toward the family. Yes, children. I invite the children to stand here on the side of the podium. Come on up. Since 1969, the General Assembly recognized that the Convention on the Rights of the Child enshrines in a binding international instrument, namely, that the family as a natural and fundamental group unit of society is the natural environment for the growth and well-being of all its members, particularly children and youth. And so without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the children of the world. Children, the floor is yours.
A Declaration on the Rights of Children and Their Families, a call from the children of the world. We, the children, hereby present the following declaration signed by thousands of children from every continent of the world. Each article is based on existing international state treaty obligations and foundational UN agreements. Article 1. Each child has a right to a family, recognizing the family's natural and fundamental group unit of society entitled to protection by society and the state, and that the child, for the full and harmonious development of his or her personality, should grow up in a family environment in an atmosphere of happiness, love, and understanding. We call upon state parties in the United Nations system to protect and strengthen the institution to ensure the optimal development of children.
Article 2. Each child has the right to a married mother and father. Recognizing that children and youth who reside in a stable, intact family with a married mother and father generally exhibit greater well-being according to every measurable indicator, including physically, socially, emotionally, economically, and academically. And that according to the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, that the child has the right, as far as possible, to know and be cared for by his or her parents. We call upon states parties in the United Nations system to promote and protect the institution of marriage as the best environment for children.
Article 3. Each child has the right to the protection and guidance of their parents. Recognizing that parents have the primary responsibility for the upbringing and development of the child, we call upon states parties in the United Nations system to respect family autonomy and the responsibilities, rights, and duties of parents to direct the upbringing of their children.
Article 4. Each child has a right to a religion. Recognizing states' international treaty obligations to respect the right of the child to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. Recognizing that the introduction of children to the culture, values, and norms of their society begins in the family. That parents have the right to ensure the religious and moral education of their children in conformity with their own convictions. We call upon states, parties, and the United Nations system to respect the rights of children with regard to thought, conscience, and religion, and to respect the rights of parents to guide the moral and religious education of their children.
Article 5. Sorry. Each child has a right to innocence in childhood. Recognizing that children have a right to enjoy childhood, free of adult concerns and responsibilities, and that in accordance with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that parents have a prior right to choose the kind of education that shall be given to their children. And noting with alarm the increasing international trend to grant autonomous adult rights, including sexual rights to children. Also noting with alarm increasing efforts to provide children prematurely with explicit sexual information, thereby robbing them of their health and innocence, and hampering their ability to form stable, healthy families in the future. We call upon state parties in the United Nations system to protect the health and innocence of children by respecting the prior rights of parents to guide the education of their children, especially in sexual matters.
Article 6. The protection of children requires the protection of the family. Recognizing that for the full protection of the rights of the child and of the family enumerated in this declaration, all governments must fulfill their legal obligation to protect the institution of the family. We call upon states parties in the United Nations system to protect the health and the innocence of the children by respecting the prior rights of parents to guide the education of their children, especially in sexual manners.
Therefore, we call upon all UN member states and the United Nations system to mainstream a family perspective in all laws, policies, and programs, and to recognize and respect the rights of parents in all governmental actions impacting their children.
We cannot help but look at you and recognize how truly precious and important and special this conversation is, not only for the future, but for your present-day lives now and every moment of your lives. Thank you for this very beautiful, beautiful call. That was for you, member states, ambassadors, excellencies, Deputy Minister. Thank you so much. God bless you all. Well, this concludes our ceremonial segment. I now invite the speakers we have so graciously heard from to kindly take their seats on the floor, and I invite the panelists who will be part of the interactive panel discussion to come to the podium. One more round of applause for our tremendous speakers and start.
So I am who I am today because of my mother, because of the confidence and trust I saw in my mom. Family.
So I've just been informed that we have a very special video to show as our next, of course, panelists come up. Here is a brief video from Family Watch International. It shows groups from around the world realizing the need to bring more attention to the family here at UN headquarters. Enjoy.
So I am who I am today because of my mother, because of the confidence and trust I saw in my mom. Family is a backbone for humankind.
I believe in families. Families are the cradle of hope. They nurture the future, and children need parents. With them, we can face a better world.
The most wonderful thing that could ever happen to me.
Family is the most essential unit in a society.
It's an honor to speak of family as a mother of 5 sons and 2 daughters that have truly added to the quality of life for me and my husband.
This is my granddaughter. When she is beside me, I feel that I own the whole world. And when I hear her voice from far, I feel happy.
And children thrive within a family far better than in any other structure.
These relationships make us strong. We can survive everything. We enjoy life much more.
The family is so important. If it wasn't for my mom and dad, I would not be here.
I see family as the central organizing principle of my life for my wife and I. Our children, encouraging them, equipping them.
Children are our future. They're our greatest asset. And the family is the place where children are nurtured and raised.
The world needs families in order to create life. And this creativity goes on throughout all generations. Family matters.
We should really all stand together in protecting it.
Family is the best.
So let's support our families.
The first topic we will address in this new panel discussion is on the very nature of the family and its relation to marriage, and the nuclear family. I'm going to invite a remarkable young man to address us, Sherif Jirjis. Talk about a super achiever, if ever there was one. Sherif is completing a Ph.D. at Princeton University. At the same time, he is going to law school at Yale University. Indeed, congratulations. He is the co-author of a seminal book on the topic alongside Professor Robert George of Princeton and Ryan Anderson of the Heritage Foundation titled, What is Marriage? Sharif, welcome to ECOSOC, to the ECOSOC chamber. You have the floor.
Well, thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here and to discuss this very important issue. We heard several times on the first panel that the basis of society is the family. But we also know that the basis of the family is marriage. And I want to talk about marriage today. You're going to hear later legal and policy and theological perspectives on the nature of marriage and the family. But I want to give you a philosophical take on that core unit of the family, which is marriage. And the reason is that marriage is not parochial. It's not the unique property of any particular tongue or culture or creed. It's true that it has roots in the ancient Hebrew scriptures of the Jewish and Christian and Islamic traditions, but it's also found in the thinking of ancient Greek and Roman thinkers who had no connection to Judaism or Christianity, people like Plato and Socrates and Aristotle, like Xenophanes and Musonius Rufus and Plutarch, who reasoned their way to the same vision of marriage because it's grounded in human nature and not just in revelation. It's in the canon law of the churches, but it's also in the common law, for example, that England embodied and that we inherited here in the former colonies and also in the Commonwealth countries. It's present in all of those Western traditions, but also in Eastern traditions, both cultural and religious. And it's basically spanned every continent and millennium that we have any record of at all. And what is that vision? What is that vision of marriage? Well, it's a wholesome and a worthy vision. It's a vision on which a man and a woman unite at all levels, heart, mind, and body, in an act that points them towards a bodily end that encompasses and goes beyond them both, the making of new life. Because on this vision, the very act that makes marital love is also the kind of act that makes new life. Marriage itself, that relationship, though it's valuable in itself, points towards family life, and it's fulfilled and extended, enriched by family life. For that reason, it's also extended by and fulfilled in home life. It calls for that uniquely all-encompassing sharing of domestic life, to pursue together every dimension of life in order to rear children and develop them in every dimension. And because of all of those things, because it unites a man and woman at all levels, and with respect to every dimension of life, because it points to family life, it also calls for the total commitment that family life demands, which is permanent and for the whole of life, no matter what challenges come. In other words, this is a vision of marriage on which a man and a woman come together as husband and wife to be father and mother to any children they rear. It's a vision, and it's the only vision, that's capable of uniting children with their parents, of giving every child the best shot possible, of being reared by the man and woman whose love gave him or her life. And for those reasons, it serves every aspect of the common good. We know that when children have that opportunity to be reared and cared for and loved by the mother and father to whom they owe their existence, it serves every aspect of the common good. It serves health and education. It serves income and commerce. It serves the moral discipline and virtue on which every other institution of civil society depends. And for all those reasons, it serves the cause of political freedom and justice and social flourishing. It's a vision of marriage that serves every aspect of the common good. Today we face efforts to redefine that vision of marriage, and for that reason to also redefine our understanding of the family. And the main proposal on offer is to collapse that vision of marriage into emotional companionship of any form and any basic commitment. And the problem with that vision of marriage and family is that it cannot support the commitment on which the common good depends. If marriage were simply a matter of emotional companionship, there'd be no reason of principle for it to be permanent. There'd be no reason to require it to be exclusive, to involve that lifelong and total fidelity to one another and to the children that come of the relationship. And why does this matter? Why does it matter what vision of marriage the law or society teaches? Well, the easiest way to think about that is to imagine children who grow up from day one in a culture where law and civil society tell them that what makes a marriage is the emotional companionship, that it's inauthentic to remain in the relationship when the emotional fulfillment dries up, that men and women are perfectly replaceable when it comes to parenting, that biological connection doesn't matter at all. In fact, that thinking otherwise is a matter of bigotry, that fathers and mothers are optional, not essential. Will those children growing up in that culture, absorbing those lessons from the very beginning of their lives, will they be more or less likely to remain in a marriage when it becomes difficult? Or to think they have to commit to a marriage in the first place before having children? Or to stick with it for the sake of the children, for the sake of giving their children a commitment to and the knowledge and love of their own mother and father? The answers are clear. The more they absorb those lessons, the less likely they are to give children the best shot at being reared by the both of them in a stable and total commitment. And if that's true, then changing our vision of marriage, undermining those stabilizing norms of marriage, will hurt every aspect of the common good that a stable marriage serves, educational and health and otherwise. In other words, what we're pushing for today, what we are endorsing and supporting and celebrating, is a vision of marriage and the family that serves everyone. It's not a matter of hatred, it's not a matter of exclusion, it's a matter of compassion and common sense. And again, it's centered on the interests of men and of women and of children and of all of society, in seeing to it that children have the best shot at waking up every morning under the same roof as the man and the woman who gave them life. Thanks.
Sharif, thank you so very much for that very inspiring message. And I dare and humbly add the soulful unity when a husband and wife truly fall into love with each other, from what I believe is a spiritual blessing. Thank you. Well, I just found out the lady to my left is also from San Diego, California, so I really feel that the family is coming closer here. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is well known among us. She will talk about international law and human rights law and what they have to say about the family. Susan Yoshihara is a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy and received her Ph.D. in International Relations from the Fletcher School, Tufts University. She is a retired U.S. Navy helicopter pilot, a mother, and a scholar. Her research interests include intervention, human rights, and humanitarianism in international law and politics. She is director of the International Organizations Research Group and is executive vice president for research at the Center for Family and Human Rights, or as we all know it, CFAM. Susan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. We're here to celebrate the family, so let's celebrate. And if the family is worth celebrating, so are the laws and policies that protect the family. For the last 10 years, I've examined the way international law has been interpreted with new meanings. Now, we might not all agree on all of these reinterpretations, but we can all agree that fundamental rights should be protected in the process. Now, no research has taught me more about the need to support the rights of parents than becoming a parent, and that wasn't a sure thing. How many here have heard of the global flight from marriage and family? That record numbers of women in their 40s have never been married, never had children, and that it's true in countries developed and developing, Christian, Muslim, Asian, European. Fewer of us are getting married and fewer forming families. Now, I'm not pointing fingers. In fact, I was once a statistic. I found myself in my 40s, not yet married, no children, and I realized I had to dedicate myself just as seriously to forging a marriage as I did to advancing my career as a Navy helicopter pilot. Now, for many of those years, I worked with Mother Teresa's sisters here and around the world. I was, and I still am, inspired by a letter that she wrote to the delegates to the Fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing in 1995. She urged them to see the unique gifts of men and women and not to try to equate them. She said, "We complete each other." And she said, and I quote, "That special power of loving that belongs to a woman is seen most clearly when she becomes a mother." In other words, motherhood is the ultimate form of women's empowerment. I remember not long ago telling a first-time expectant mother that as life experiences go, giving birth was more thrilling than landing a helicopter on the back of a pitching, rolling ship deck at night in the rain. My husband and I held different passports, spoke different mother tongues, and practiced different religions. But one of the things we held in common was a happy childhood and the desire for a peaceful home life. Both his parents and mine are married happily after 45 years and 55 years, respectively. Now, 3 years ago, almost to the day, we flew to Asia and adopted our youngest daughter, Dorothy. She lost her family when she was just 2 days old. The morning after we flew her home and she met her big sister, her JJ, for the first time, it was love at first sight, and they are inseparable. Like many 4-year-olds, Dorothy loves Elsa from the Disney movie Frozen. Don't you just love Elsa? And like Dorothy and most Disney movies, the parents are tragically lost in the first scene, leaving the children to deal with a broken family. In the final scene, it's the younger sister Anna's selflessness, an act of true love, which brings springtime to the frozen kingdom at last. Now, I recognize that film can be interpreted many ways, but as parents, we have to decide when the child is ready for such a story, and we have to interpret it with the times in keeping with family values. We vigilantly protect their innocence and the wonder of childhood. And aren't children steeped in the natural order of things? My 4-year-old and my 6-year-old see everything in terms of mommies and daddies and babies, bugs and birds. In fact, if you asked them, they could tell you if a spider was a mommy or a daddy. The family fills their little imaginations, like it did when we were children. They just know what a family is. Now, Dorothy came to us with special needs. She undergoes 4 therapies a week to help her with her disabilities. And last year, the school district pulled her therapist out of her private school as a cost-cutting measure, and they told us that the only way she could access them was to go to public school. So we put her on the little yellow bus, and off she went. Just before Thanksgiving, I got an anxious call from my sister. Her 3-year-old is in the same public preschool class. She went in for Mommy Reading Day, and one of the 3-year-olds handed her a book entitled simply, Families. And she got to the part where it said that some families have a mommy and a daddy, some families have 2 daddies, and some families have 2 mommies. She said she felt pretty shocked and saddened. There were all these little pictures showing these pre-readers what that was all about. Well, like a good big sister, I went to talk to the teacher, face-to-face and one-on-one, and I simply let her know that I found the book inappropriate for my daughter. She's so young. And she said, well, I just got that book. I was going to read it during Thanksgiving, and I've got shelves of those books. You'll have to talk to the principal. So my husband and I suited up and talked to the principal. Now, before we even sat down, she said to me, the book stays in the classroom. End of discussion. Okay. When we tried to explain that we found it inappropriate in keeping with our family values, she said, but here at public school, we have to welcome all families. And yet we knew that in this classroom, there were no such families, so why the indoctrination? She said it was about diversity. My husband and I were thinking, diversity. Dorothy lives in a family that's biracial, immigrant, international, multilingual, adoptive, and special needs. She loves diversity. And then she said it's the same as teaching them about divorce in our day. And I pointed out the pain and the anguish that divorce brings to little children. Hardly something that children, some of them still in pull-up diapers, need to learn in preschool. Could our daughter not just step out of the room when this is read? Maybe she could just go to one of her therapy sessions when you're going to read the book. She thought this was possible until she talked to the superintendent and the lawyer. Sorry for the lawyers in the room. Then she called to say, Mr. and Mrs. Yoshihara, your only opt-out option is homeschool or private school. But that wasn't an option for our Dorothy because the superintendent said she had to go there to get her therapies. You know, it's sad to think that if she wasn't disabled, my little girl wouldn't be going through this at all. It seemed like this agenda was trumping all of her other rights. And my husband and I felt powerless to protect our little girl. And we found it ironic that she had escaped one state institution only to be subjected to another institution. And we wanted to discuss this with the superintendent to find out how she was going to reconcile all this. But she hasn't returned my calls. She hasn't returned our requests for meetings or the letter that we wrote her in January. Now, mind you, there are only 4 schools in our district. We're still waiting. Finally, I asked a friend, a prominent attorney in our state, that he place a call to the lawyer. And they did take his call. But when he suggested that a parent might consider this inappropriate and somewhat confusing for a 4-year-old, her response was this: not in 2016, it's not. End of conversation. The message was crystal clear. We won, you lose. Now, maybe before the law was changed in our country and our state, I could have engaged my neighbors in conversation. I could have appealed to reason. We could have discussed studies. I love to discuss studies. But in 2016, we didn't even rate a phone call. Now, here's why law matters. The change in the marriage law has shut down dialogue in my little town. It's driven us to corners like boxers in a ring. I've talked to other parents. They agree, but they're afraid to speak up. It's isolating us. It's pit the teacher against the parent, and it's made the child choose sides, instilling doubt where there should be trust in her little life. Now, in our case, it didn't have anything to do with stopping bullying or diversity of the families, and it didn't have much to do with the best interest of the child. In fact, the principal didn't even know Dorothy's name, much less her story, but she was very clear on the policy. And in reality, this could be any agenda. 2 years ago, they took God out of our schools. No more mention of God. It seems to be about winning, even if the child loses. Now, here at the UN, as we heard from these beautiful children, the law is very clear. You and I know that it's under strain and that it needs some bolstering, and it's friends like you who are going to help bolster it. For many years, international social policy has been in the sway of a social scientist's view in which the family is defined by its social function. Now, this view maintains that the family is a group of persons and that it brings many benefits to the person and to society. It might be about raising children. It might be about love and mutual support. Family is producer. Family is consumer. Family continues to the workforce and development. Now, all of that's true, but it doesn't define a family. It can't change the inherent nature of a family. Like the individual person, a family just is. It exists in nature. And like all of nature, like our environment, the family is both powerful and fragile, and it needs to be cared for. The view that the family is what it does, that it's socially constructed, has evolved here in the UN to change the word family to families or various forms of the family. But this would be misguided. While the family can take different forms from the mother, father, child norm, it just proves the rule. It doesn't redefine the family. Some say that because international law doesn't define the family, that nations are free to define it any way they want. But that's not the case. International law is very clear. So what does it say? Well, as the Universal Declaration and CEDAW reflect, marriage is between a man and a woman. As CEDAW says, the man and the woman are equally important to the family. They have a common responsibility to raise their children. Once formed, the Declaration tells us it's the natural and fundamental group unit of society. Just as it says on this little placard here, it's worthy of protection by society and the state. The law says that parents have a prior right to choose their children's education, and that states must respect the parents' responsibilities, rights, and duties in the guidance of children's rights. And I want to note that both the civil and political covenant and the economic and social covenant tell us that states must respect the liberty of parents to ensure the religious and moral education of their children in conformity with their own convictions. Now, as I'm really aware, in Dorothy's case, a child has a right to a mother and a father, a right to be cared for by her parents, and one that doesn't get enough attention, but it was mentioned earlier, a right to family reunification that is positive, humane, and expeditious. You and I know, and I think it's stunning to note, that there are so many meetings here at the UN on controversial ideas of the family, but how many have there been on reunification of the family? You know, we're witnessing a humanitarian tragedy. More refugees than at any time since the Second World War. The Secretary General for this upcoming World Humanitarian Summit has told us 125 million of us in humanitarian crisis. All of them belong to a family. And what do we know about those families? In 2 weeks, the world will meet in Istanbul for the World Humanitarian Summit. There will be a whole panel on women and girls' empowerment that focuses on reproductive rights as though they're disembodied from the family. Not one of those panels, those roundtables, is on family. Now let me conclude with an update on my own family. My husband's work has brought us temporarily back to San Diego, and it means a reprieve from the painful situation in New England in our school district. Our children entered the parish school, and last week, Father Peter, our priest, told the school children at Mass about his own childhood. He escaped his country when he was 10 years old. He had to say goodbye to his mother and father. And with his siblings, he entered a refugee camp. He said it was the strong foundation of faith and family that got him through it, and to his immigration to the United States, where now he leads a community, our community of immigrants from Latin America and from Southeast Asia, all of whom have similar stories of exodus, pain, and hope. These are the families that are now shaping my girls' lives, and I'm so grateful. San Diego and New England are on opposite corners of this great country, and in some ways at the opposite ends of the cultural spectrum. And I don't know how the new law will affect this little family-friendly community. I have to remain optimistic. In the fall, we return to New England, and I don't know what will happen, honestly, and I ask for your prayers. Here's my point. This is not just my story. Like an epic Disney tale, it's playing in theaters near you. It's coming to your legislatures, it's coming to your courts and to your schools, and if it hasn't, it will soon. And that's why it's so important to be clear and to protect the laws that support the family. We come together today as friends of the family. Friends speak frankly about things that matter, and they trust one another to give them the benefit of the doubt when they talk about difficult subjects. Friends listen to one another's stories, and I thank you for listening to mine. I hope together we can find ways to protect the laws that protect the family, and by so doing, be true friends of the family. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yoshihara Susan. Thank you so much for your very valuable, very powerful, and very astute presentation, and of course, sharing your personal story with us. You indeed have our prayers, and I think I could speak for everyone here on that note. And thank you so much for mentioning the refugee crisis. And millions of those members of the family are children who are missing. Thank you very much. Our next topic will focus on the dynamics of women, family, and work. This discussion topic will bring together multiple tracks of international and domestic policies, women's issues, the family, poverty eradication, and employment. Our speaker may be familiar to many here, as this is not the first time she takes part in a very important UN panel like this. Ms. Helen Alvarez is a professor at George Mason University School of Law, where she teaches family law, law and religion, and property law. She writes about family, marriage, parenting, non-marital households, and religious freedom in both scholarly and mainstream publications. I am honored to give you the floor.
Thank you so much. And it's really an honor to be with you, especially as I know how many of you are expert already in the subject matter that I will touch. I'd like to serve you today by offering you some concepts and some language about the rationality of action in support of the family, the nobility of action in support of the family, particularly there with reference to the well-being of women and the well-being of the disabled and the well-being of children. But I'd like to also talk about some stumbling blocks to action, along with ideas about overcoming these. And all of these, I hope, conscious of the skills, and they are very high-level skills that you are required to bring to bear on your work here at the United Nations, to speak the truth, trying to elicit agreement on particular matters, but also living with disagreement, to fairly address other people's misgivings and objections, while manifesting your commitment to the equality and dignity of every human person alongside an option for the most vulnerable persons. So I want to talk first about the rationality of arguments in support of the family, and at the risk of repeating a little some of the elements that Sharif brought up, we know from continually released scientific investigations that the family that provides stability for children, wherein children have the opportunity to know and be known, to love and be loved by their parents, is not just a project for personal happiness, but a project for the well-being of the community and the nation. This really can no longer be seriously doubted empirically, even as we simultaneously know that some families fall short or worse. Previously, there was little need to make the rational case for the family. People felt it by intuition or by nearly universal, global human experience. But we really do need to bring forth the rational arguments today. What can we say here? We can start with the philosophical, and to add to a few of the things that Sharif said, we do have some modern philosophers who are making some interesting discussions of the family. One of them, one of my favorite, Australian, Brian Johnstone, talks about the human person as a gifted giver. That is, a person who has, by birth, by nature, a set of gifts, who actually finds herself or himself by sharing these with others. In short, we're not made for solitary confinement. And we feel stunted and we feel very unfulfilled when our gifts are not received. A second and very intuitively persuasive account is the philosopher Eva Feder-Kete. And I may point out that she and Brian Johnstone don't agree on a lot in the world of public policy. but they agree on the family. She often reasons from her lived experience providing care for her disabled daughter, even while she's a very eminent philosopher. She describes human beings' fundamentally interdependent nature. She says this requires a visible response to the capacities that each person has for gifts to the other. Her theory continues. She says the person who gives love and care to another is thereby made vulnerable because she or he is investing time, emotion, and labor into this vulnerable other. Therefore, the caregiver needs care, needs protection, needs help, needs someone to provide for her or for him. These two accounts point to the natural good and the necessity of the human family. They point to a community of people willing to recognize, celebrate, and then elicit and develop the gifts of others, to serve one another, constantly and reliably be present to one another, and inclined by nature, probably evolutionarily, as we're told regarding the family, to desire the good of one another through sacrifices, although these are sacrifices with great rewards in the family. This dynamic harmony between people that I'm describing, it cannot be built by a manufacturer. It cannot be legislated into being by a government. It doesn't happen within short-term relations. People don't feel secure there to make big investments into one another. It is undermined by treating people as just a body, just a thing, just a sexual object. But this dynamic is supplied by nature. And of course, you recognize that it's the family. Our common sense and our global history confirm these philosophers' conclusions. And today we have some really interesting additional empirical data that supports it. So, for example, we know today from sources as diverse as neuroscience, biology, psychology, endocrinology, sociology, economics, psychology, about the way the human body and the mind together do some of the following. They assist men and women in choosing mates with whom they can be faithful for the long run. They dispose spouses to care for one another and for their common children. They affect what contributions fathers and mothers bring, some unique, some overlapping, some synergetic, to the project of the family. We also, interestingly, are learning more about what it is that children do for their parents. We know this, interestingly, at the level of brain development now. Children reduce adults' age-related neural decline. They improve adults' problem-solving capacities. They also elevate their ability to commit to concrete alliances and to make significant sacrifices for one another. Add to this tantalizing research the new evidence from human epigenomic research. The human epigenome is a layer of biochemical markers attached to our DNA that can turn genes on and off. We now know that it's actually affected by parenting and being parented, such that good fathering and good mothering matters to the identity not only of the present, but also of the future generations in those families. Obviously, none of this is meant to disparage or even undervalue the good of couples who are adopting children whose birth parents are unable to care for them. It is, however, to urge private and public sources never to distort or oppose the human family. Like the natural environment, the human family is not a human invention. This means it's not ours to own, and it's not ours to destroy. Rather, the entire integrated ecological system relies on the millions of unseen connections and dynamics between family members for the present and for intergenerational good. I want to turn now to why the family isn't just rational, but also a noble cause, right? First, there's no other institution that cares for the vulnerable as does the family. I saw this in my own family with my disabled sister, absolutely broadly. It made the family unity to care for her. We know that families can fail this mission. We can easily identify situations where civil society and public institutions need to step in. But we can't name another institution, program, or machine that can deliver the on-the-scene, tailored to the individual help, respecting the vagaries of life that the family can. Whether we're talking about youth, disability, old age, or even just navigating our complex and changing world. We can also say that the cause of the family is noble because friends of the family are great friends to their country and their culture. They produce healthier citizens, more satisfied with their lives. They also develop the human capacity for hard work, as was referred to by the imam on the first panel, and are seedbeds, interestingly, empirically, of entrepreneurship. They also diminish members' needs to turn to public support. The family is also a noble cause because it assists the good of international cooperation and peace. The family is a beautiful good that every country, every culture, and every religious tradition can support. So even when negotiating parties differ on particular positions, when parties are forwarding their causes as aspects of support of the family, people can understand one another and are truly speaking the same language. Finally, the family is a noble cause because action is urgently needed to share its goods with people who are disproportionately suffering the loss, and that is the poor and some minority populations. The well-off, who ironically are more likely to cast suspicion on the marital family, are also likely to be stably married themselves and rearing marital children. They build up human and social and economic capital, and then they pass it down the generations. But we know that poor families are suffering less marriage, more divorce, more abortion, more non-marital pregnancies. And there's an additional alarming feature that is coming up, and you see it especially in the research on family mobility that's coming out of Harvard University and Northwestern University. Studies comparing the fates of brothers and sisters from the identical family are showing that boys are falling drastically behind. And we know now from this research that boys are less resilient to family disadvantage than their sisters are, and are falling behind educationally and economically. Let me finally turn to the matter of why, given how obviously beautiful the family is, there would be objections to a family agenda. First, there are those who cite the hurt feelings of those who lack a mother or father or both. Of course, there are fathers and mothers who are irresponsible or violent. There are economic situations and others working strongly against the possibility of forming strong families, and this is in every country in the world. But these situations are reminders to us to be precise in our language and kind in our encounters. They also call for us to work across political lines for what works for the family, whether it is denominated left or right. What works economically, educationally, and in terms of shoring up the meaning of the family itself. They are not an argument to paint all families as problematic. Some object to a family agenda with the claim that marriage and motherhood repress women, allow violence, encourage sexual hierarchies, allow women's differences to lead to their subjugation, or confine women to limited roles. Now, a book would be too short to respond here, but let me make a few observations. Marriage, first and foremost, appears from government data in most countries to be the least violent romantic alliance in which women participate, the very least. Marriage also promotes greater sharing of resources between men and women and mutual support emotionally. Married women report themselves very happy, and marriage provides the most likely source of secure, sacrificial, and joint commitment to the welfare of the next generation. It also allows women to make their contribution in the workplace more secure, that they have achieved a balance at home. Nuance and truthful data is important here. You can acknowledge that some people, some women, feel constrained in family life or demeaned by social evaluations of their childcare work, or insufficiently empowered to manage home and work. But at the same time, you can robustly affirm and welcome genuine legal and cultural shifts, affirming women's radical equality with men, affirming men's and women's unique as well as overlapping contributions. You can also celebrate legal moves that are happening more now to allow women to make the more complete contributions they desire, both at home and at work, with more flexibility, with a living wage and other policies. Here it should be said, there should be nothing intrinsic within the notion of differentiation or even interdependency between men and women that should lead to ranking or role limitation. In fact, if at the United Nations people cannot agree that there can be equality with diversity, we're in some trouble. And we see this in its beginning form within the family. Let me conclude then. I think we have many ways to be respectful to genuine misgivings about the family, while making a persuasive and even empirically supported case that the family is an irreplaceable, universal, and social good. When we do speak, we do need to let those with whom we are dialoguing say that we insist upon reason. We need to tell them that the vulnerable are our first concern. I think we can say that the argument for children is enough. It comprehends everybody, and everybody at the most vulnerable time in their life. I think we can say that when it comes to the diversity and the synergy between men and women, we start with a presumption of the radical equality of men and women before God, before government, between all human beings. We look for ways to both recognize women's differences and their overlapping and unique contributions. There's a marvelous phrase by the French philosopher Étienne Gilson that philosophy always buries its undertakers. Let me say that I think the same has been true of the family. Predictions of its demise are always overdone, and the family continues to outlive its undertakers. That said, I am worried. There are so many people without nourishing and stable family lives because of complex reasons. And some of the family's basic goods are being dismissed. I'm also worried because it is considered offensive in some places to be a great friend of the family, to say that it is a great gift to children. But I am mostly full of hope because of the family's manifest goodness. So now is precisely the time when, to give solidarity to one another, and in particular to vulnerable children, we do have to let ourselves be seen and heard with reasonable and kind arguments, and to be leaned upon and to lean upon one another in support of the family. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much for your very relevant statement, Professor Alvarez. And I have to add, just last week at a conference on the refugee issue at the Vatican, we learned, in fact, it was a warning that because of the breakdown that we're witnessing of the family, that the next generation, for the first time in history, in recent history, will witness a generation that is less educated, less wealthy, and less successful, to say the least. There were other variables. It's very, very scary. But I do go back to your point on that there is hope, and it is time for solidarity, and your focus on the nobility of the family, the value of the natural family, and the beautiful, eloquent from the philosophers that the human person is a gift giver. That's so very true. And of course, our natural interdependency as a family. So very beautiful. Thank you so much for your very relevant remarks. We turn now to recognizing the roots of society in the family and as a foundation of justice. Our next topic may surprise some of those accustomed to UN events where data and numbers seem the one only thing that matters. While we hear a lot about law and policy in these chambers, we don't get a lot of philosophical and ethical discussion of law and policy. Here today to help us to do this is Professor David Crawford of the Pontifical John Paul II Institute for Studies on Marriage and Family at the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. A lawyer by training, David decided to study ethics after trying the legal profession. No wonder. He has published articles and books on the topic of his research, which seek to uncover the truth of human nature. It is indeed an honor and a pleasure to invite you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here. I do have a law background, and I always say I'm a reformed lawyer, and my colleagues always say that once a lawyer, always a lawyer. At any rate, thank you very much. I'm honored to have the opportunity to say a few things to you. I wanted to, I think my presentation will be a little bit different. I wanted to say something about what we've heard several times already, the natural, that the family is the natural and fundamental group for society. I wanted especially to focus on this idea of the natural family. And the reason for that is because it seems that the natural family is no longer intelligible to large parts of society today, at least here in the United States, but I think also all around the world. And so I want to talk about natural. I was very struck by Dr. Yoshihara's comment that her children sort of automatically know what a family is or what marriage is. And that's my experience also with my own family, my own children. But the problem is the adults don't know what a family is. And so, what we're finding in this language of the natural family is that's precisely what's challenged, that the family is natural. Or you know, maybe the family is in fact an unnatural imposition, right? These are the sorts of things we hear. So I wanted to say something about that and the idea of this being at the root of justice. So justice, it seems to me, if it's worth anything, has to presuppose what is true about human beings. Because otherwise, our concept of justice will be made for some other kind of being, not human beings. And so there are two pertinent truths that I want to highlight here in terms of discussing justice. Justice and truth go together, and when they're taken apart, they fall apart. So the first truth that I want to talk about with respect to the person is human beings are by nature communal, social beings. And when I say that, I don't only mean that people naturally gather into social groups, which is true enough, but that they do gather into social groups is signs of a deeper kind of communal or social nature or aptness. And we can see this, for example, if we just draw on the example of language, right? It's not just that we sort of as individuals enter into a language community. No, we're children and we're raised within a language community. The language is there even before we are. We never can give ourselves a language community. We're immersed in language before we can even use it. And then we become part of that community from the beginning. And what's more, it's necessary for us to become part of that community in order for us to really flourish. So there's an example of a way in which our communal nature is very obvious. We're part of language communities. So that's just an example, and I'll apply that example to the family in a moment. There's another truth that seems to me very vital and important here, and that is human beings are rational and free agents, right? We make decisions, we pursue goals, we pursue fulfillment, we want to be happy, and we make decisions that we think will lead us to happiness. So we're not simply then subservient to the community that we belong to. Rather, the community enables us to be rational and free actors. We contribute to the communities of which we are members, but the communities also contribute to us. So there's a reciprocal kind of relationship there. So now, it's often assumed that these two ideas, that of the natural human community and that of personal freedom, are in tension, right? I mean, it seems to me that's at the root somehow of the situation that we find ourselves in today. But I want to argue that, in fact, they're interdependent, that we're only free because we are communal people, we're communal beings whose very nature it is to become aware of ourselves and to participate in communities that precede us, that we don't just give ourselves through our own choices and acts. Okay, so keeping these two truths in mind, that we're communal and that we're rational and free agents, let's consider the idea of the family. The family is also a natural community, and in this sense, it's like the community of language users, right? It's natural in that sense. Just as we do not give ourselves language, we do not give ourselves life. We are all born of a mother and a father. Hence, the natural family is the sort of community that precedes our acts of choice, and yet at a very fundamental level allows both us and our freedom to be. In fact, more than any other community, the family shows us both that our lives can only begin as a gift and that our being communal is inscribed in our beings, we might say. Consider, our being given life through a mother and father means that we always bear within ourselves a visible likeness to others. Like our immersion in language, this likeness precedes any sort of choice or act on our part. Moreover, this visible likeness is personally and socially decisive. When we see our own reflection in a mirror and discover there the likeness of our parents, we also understand this likeness is deeply embedded in our sense of self, our identity. This fact reveals a humanly weighty truth. It shows us both our origins and our destiny, our own mortality and the weight of being. Now, here we arrive at a crucial, if subtle point. If childhood reveals that our life is a gift, these insights run in the other direction as well. Just as the child's nature points back to the gift of his or her origin in the parents, so too the natural relationship between the man and the woman points to the child. The child is already implicit in the kind of community the husband and wife possess, in the kind of acts that are proper to it, and in the specific type of free consent they give to each other in marriage. Hence, when a woman looks into the eyes of her children and sees both her husband and herself, this too is a moment of personal and existential depth. Just as we are born children, so too our being a man or woman is something we are born to that precedes any act of freedom on our part. Both life and the sexual union of man and woman are given by nature and by nature's author, the creator of all. Yet, as with communities of language users, the natural and given order of the family does not stand in opposition to our freedom, but in fact makes freedom possible. This is apparent in many ways, but let me just refer to one. In order for me to act in a fully human and free way, I need to have a sense of myself, of my identity, of who I am, and of the history that leads to this moment and this choice. But as we have seen, the natural family, before all else, offers this transcendent basis for personal identity, precisely because it manifests the givenness of human origins and community. The family is the foundation of authentic justice, therefore, because it is only the family that secures what is true in the most complete sense about the human person, his or her communal and free nature. Many will think I have begged the question, right, just in what I've said just now. Indeed, many will argue that in our day and age, personal identity can no longer be rooted in the relations of the natural family. Many also will question the givenness of male and female, or whether it really, in all cases, must precede free acts. Moreover, a dominant cultural, social, and political narrative has developed according to which the marital and familial communities are purely civil institutions and therefore susceptible entirely to legislative or court manipulation. Important here is that this is only an alternative narrative and not the more obviously real or true one. The vast majority of people worldwide continue to be born and live in natural or to families or to seek to start natural families. Indeed, a closer look reveals that this alternate narrative reflects Western political ideology more than any sort of objective truth about people themselves. Ironically, at a time when we see human freedom and action as a threat to the givenness of our natural environment, we now see the givenness of human nature and natural communities as threats to our freedom. For a long time now, therefore, we have attempted to remake the family into the image of Western conceptions of political society, understood as the non-natural, constructed, and voluntary relations of self-interested and rights-bearing individuals, individuals who are thought of only as secondarily communal, as only being communal in the sense that they voluntarily enter into a society of some kind. We therefore reduce natural relationships to merely functional ones, as though the laboratory and the test tube can possess equivalent human meaning to the womb or the breast, or as though civil law can naturalize what is contrary to the communal nature visible in our bodies. In effect, rather than seeing civil society as rooted in the family, we have started to see the family as a creature of the state. Nevertheless, taking measures to support and preserve the family will serve at least two vital purposes for human society. First, it will resist the constant fragmenting tendencies of modern culture. I have tried to outline a sense of the person and his or her humanity, the communal and rational free character of the human person. I've tried to represent that in its wholeness in my brief comments here. The modern tendencies to which I refer, on the other hand, proceed by way of a series of abstractions and divisions between nature and freedom, the body and self, community and individual, justice and truth. Because of its foundational support of the person in his or her wholeness, the natural family resists these fragmenting tendencies. Second, if modern culture is fragmenting, it is also totalizing. The natural family resists these tendencies as well. In preceding, yet providing the foundation for freedom and identity, the family also precedes the state. In effect, the family, as rooted in nature, declares that man and woman are not reducible to state-mediated relations. Without this recognition, we would be left with only the individual and his choices over and against civil law and its institutions. Then the only substantial realities would be the individual and the state. In effect, then, there would be nothing that really and truly precedes or is outside of the state. But if there's nothing outside of the state, then we have nothing other than a soft form of totalitarianism. Indeed, the most pernicious totalitarianism may turn out to be the one that is the most invisible. Thank you.
There's only one word that comes to mind: profound. You began your intervention with the mutually inclusive nature of truth and justice. And I must say that everything I heard you say resonated in truth. Thank you so much. We will now begin our interactive discussion. Actually, let me take that back. One more round of applause for our brilliant speakers here on this panel. Thank you so much. Now, we will now begin the interactive discussion portion of our talks today with member states of the group of Friends of the Family and Civil Society. So I will now give the floor to members of the group of Friends of the Family, and members of civil society will follow who have supported this event. I have the honor of giving the floor to, I believe it's the permanent representative, but I will say, to be safe, the ambassador of Pakistan. You have the floor.
It is a great honor to participate in today's special event. I'd like to commend the group of Friends of the Family, its three co-chairs, and particularly the mission of Belarus for marking and highlighting the significance of this important day at the United Nations. As a proud member of the group and a firm follower of the UN Charter and the International Bill of Human Rights, Pakistan unswervingly supports all efforts to strengthen the institution of family and to harness its full potential to realize our shared objectives of peace, prosperity, and security and harmony in our world. We fully endorse the statement of the group of Friends on the Family and support its circulation as an official document of the 70th General Assembly. This year's commemoration comes at a turning point in the history of the United Nations. Challenges abound, with families bearing the brunt of the different crises sweeping so many parts of the world. The crisis of forced migrants and displacement is but one of them. which is taking a heavy toll on families, especially children. But it is also a moment of historic opportunity as the international community embarks on implementation of the world's most ambitious and wide-ranging development agenda. Families have a crucial role to play in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. The United Nations and member states must fully integrate the pivotal role of this indispensable institution in national and international efforts and policies to achieve the objectives of the 2030 Development Agenda. Madam Chair, human experience over the ages has shown that the family is the most fundamental unit of society and the foundation of a cohesive and harmonious community. The institution of the family is not specific to a particular culture or religion. It has a vital place and it's valued by different cultures and different faiths. The institution of the family has proven its utility in the nurturing and development of children and in providing a secure and enabling environment to women. It is also the best primary educator, a vital economic driver, as well as the most comprehensive and compassionate social safety net for the unemployed, the elderly, and the disabled. These multifaceted dimensions of the institution should be employed by member states and the relevant UN agencies in all programs and policies at all levels to advance several SDG goals, including, but not limited to, eradicating poverty and hunger, improving health, education, and nutrition, promoting women's empowerment and gender equality, reducing inequities, preserving the environment, and promoting peaceful and inclusive societies. Madam Chair, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights recognizes the family as the natural and fundamental unit of society that is entitled to protection by the society and the state. It is therefore the direct responsibility of states, as indeed of all international organizations, not only to preserve and protect this institution, but also to support it in every possible way, so that it can play its unique role as the most universal and fundamental institution of human society. Let me conclude by congratulating all of you on this auspicious occasion by celebrating the vital contributions families make to achieving our shared goals and reiterating our commitment to supporting the key role of families in building a world free of want, discrimination, and suffering, and building a world of hope and of opportunity. I thank you.
Your Excellency, we thank you profoundly for your intervention, your very meaningful and astute statement, and we thank Pakistan for its solidarity. I now have the honor and privilege of giving the floor to the Ambassador of Kyrgyzstan. You have the floor.
Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Kyrgyzstan fully aligns itself with the statement delivered by the distinguished Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic Belarus on behalf of the group of friends of the families. We also would like to thank all panelists for their excellent and valuable presentation. Let me just add some words on my national capacity. Kyrgyzstan stands for the increasing role of the family in contemporary society. We are confident that the family is the best and the natural environment for the growth and well-being of children and has primary responsibility for children's moral and spiritual education and protection. We believe that the proper and healthy development of children cannot be achieved without strengthening the role of the family. The government of the Kyrgyz Republic invests significant efforts to support the family. The family code, the law on social and legal protection for domestic violence, a national strategy for reproductive health, program on social protection development, and some other documents provides us with the basic rules for legal relations within the family and determines measures for individual work with families, including families in difficult situations. Today, we developed the national program to support family, motherhood, and childhood. More than 100,000 low-income families receive social relief within the framework of social safety net. And this year, the social relief was increased by 10%. Particular attention was given to the elderly. Government policy aims to strengthen social stability, healthcare quality improvement, integration, systematic and targeted approaches in problem solving. Dear ladies and gentlemen, we all belong to a family and are convinced that the family is the foundation of society. If all families of a given society are conscious of their roles and responsibilities in creating and developing healthy, responsible members, then society and subsequently the nation will benefit. Thank you for your attention.
Your Excellency, thank you so very much, and in particular for drawing attention to the reproductive health, motherhood, and of course the elderly, as this is a very cross-generational topic on the family, and we thank Kyrgyzstan for its solidarity. We have, I understand, a special guest visiting us from Moscow. I have the honor of giving the floor to the distinguished representative from the Russian Federation. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Dear members of the group of friends and the family, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies. First of all, I would like to congratulate us all on the occasion of the International Day of Families. Allow me also to add my voice to those speaking before me in thanking the co-organizers for convening this high-level meeting of true friends and supporters of the traditional family. Such events provide an excellent opportunity for promoting awareness regarding the institution of the family and sharing best practices, as well as flagging the challenges and threats on the way. The family is a strong force for social cohesion and integration, intergenerational solidarity and development. It plays a crucial role in the preservation of cultural identity, traditions, morals, and values of society. Though the issue of the family is not included as a separate goal in the SDGs, one cannot achieve substantive results in the implementation of the entire 2030 agenda without the family. If we look at the Sustainable Development Goals attentively, all of them are interlinked with family issues, especially goals 1 to 6, 8 to 11, and 16. In our understanding, supporting the family is one of the tools for achieving genuine sustainable development so that no one is left behind. Therefore, today we shouldn't spend time regretting what was missed or omitted for whatever reason, but rather unite our efforts to revitalize the family agenda and discuss ways and means for mainstreaming it into the work of the UN system. As a first step, we should restore the tradition of the annual General Assembly resolution on the International Year of the Family. If it is not possible for G77 and China to present this initiative any longer, it could be done on behalf of the group of friends of the family. We have to monitor on a permanent basis the activities of UN organizations, agencies, and entities, including relevant special procedures and treaty bodies, and remind them to stay within their respective mandates and refrain in their daily activities from controversial actions that are not consistent with the widely accepted concept of the family. We should always stay active and vocal, otherwise our silence might be considered as acceptance of dangerous trends that are targeting the institution of the traditional family. We were strong and united against the infamous publication of UNICEF and the issuance of the stamp. Now we need to speak out regarding General Comment number 22 of the Committee on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights on the right to sexual and reproductive health. What is equally important is to mobilize our efforts not only at UN headquarters in New York, but in other parts of the world as well. Supporters of the family need to be more active and visible, namely at the Human Rights Council in Geneva. For instance, the recurring resolution on the issue of traditional values would only benefit from the co-sponsorship of all the members of the group of friends. We equally urge our partners from civil society to promote this important initiative through awareness raising. As for our national efforts in the field, pro-family programs are a vital part of our social development policies. Thus, in 2014, the government approved the state family policy concept in the Russian Federation up to the year 2025. Taking into account the position of our Commonwealth of Independent States partners regarding the promotion of traditional family values, during the summit of the Commonwealth of Independent States in 2015, the President of the Russian Federation, Mr. Vladimir Putin, proposed to proclaim 2017 as the Year of the Family. In conclusion, I would like to reiterate our deep conviction that the family, as the foundation of our civilization and society, should be in the focus of attention of all member states, the United Nations, and civil society. I wish all of us success and courage in our noble and important task for the sake of protecting the family. I thank you.
I very much thank the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation in particular for your key points on how the natural family is definitely can be mainstreamed, even though it was not developed as an independent sustainable development goal, standalone goal, but how it is a cross-cutting enabler of sustainable development. And also in particular, thank you so much for sharing with us the processes and the viewpoints of the Russian Federation and how our conversation here can help in fact advance the family in itself through the UN systems and the various hopefully possibilities we have, including with the declaration from the President himself on declaring, is it 2017, I believe you said, the Year of the Family. So thank you very much, and we very much thank the Russian Federation for its solidarity. I have now the honor of giving the floor to the Deputy Permanent Representative of Sudan. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And at the outset, I would like also to register our thanks and appreciations for Belarus for arranging this very highly important event. First and foremost, my delegation is genuinely pleased that this event, which is of paramount importance for establishing and upholding cherished values that we share, is convened. We would also like to stress the critical importance of the family as a nucleus for building a healthy society. Madam Chair, the family has a basic role in preserving the cultural identity, traditions, morals, and heritage of values, all of which are anchors of healthy social system that needs to be well maintained in order to preserve the social fabrics of our world as a crucial juncture in this history. God Almighty has created men and women and entrusted them with respective key roles in the productive process that are commensurate with the innate nature of each sex as means of preserve the existence of humans on earth. The family is not only a part of social system, but also key player in the process of building and reinforcing community and calibrating the personal disposition of its members in line with their respective social roles, besides instilling in them the necessary ethical, cultural, and religious virtues which form their identity. Madam Chair, despite the prominent correctional role the family can potentially play within its community, this role is only marginally recognized in relevant international documents. Beside many documents on women deliberately ignore depicting the family in its natural and characteristic sense. Moreover, they rarely mention the conventional terms family in the context that reinforce this concept, but rather deliberately seek to weaken and erode it. Best evidence to this is what we witness today in terms of promoting alternative forms of the family and infiltrating divergent beliefs and habits that are aligned to and incompatible with the natural universal principles rooted in human culture since time immemorial, which distinguish us humans from the rest of God's creation by parties that are bent on casting shadow of doubt one way or another on the system of our cherished values which a view to displacing them in the interest of securing their cultural, political, and ultimately economic hegemony. It is therefore imperative that we respond to the campaign by enhancing our crucial structure, maintaining our system of values, and safeguarding the family concept. Madam Chair, family play a major role as real contributors to the achievement of sustainable development goals, and unless the family is adequately empowered to play this role effectively, our ability to achieve the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, the most important slogan of which is not to leave anybody behind, is in jeopardy. It is incumbent upon the United Nations system to give due attention in the context of its work to the issue of ensuring the protection of the family as a natural and fundamental core unit of the society, and supporting it as such, and to refrain from any controversial action that contravenes this agreed concept of the family. My delegation also confirms that the goals of real, sustainable, and effective development are not attainable unless due attention is given to the family and bolstering its role in the society. Madam Chair, in conclusion, my delegation would like to avail itself of this opportunity to reiterate its commitment to upholding the goals underlying the establishment of the Group of Friends of the Family, of which Sudan is proud to be a member, and express its appreciations of the valuable efforts to the group towards enhancing values, traditions, and legacies intrinsic to the family, which view building strong and cohesive communities. This delegation also confirmed its support to all efforts aimed at ensuring protection for the family worldwide and the adoption of policies in favor of the family at all levels in the interest of securing a safer future for the families and their members. The family is the core building block of the society. Societies form the foundation of nations, and nations are the basis on which the international community is built. Consequently, upholding the family tradition simply means maintaining and enhancing the international peace and security, which in its turn is the basic and ultimate goal of the United Nations in conformity with its charter. And I thank you, Madam Chair.
I thank the Deputy Permanent Representative of Sudan, and most specifically for focusing and stressing the direct interlinkages of the natural family to the achievement of sustainable development and, of course, at its core, stable and peaceful societies. Thank you so much, and we thank Sudan for its solidarity. I now have the honor and privilege of giving the floor next to the Deputy Permanent Representative of Malaysia. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Allow me at the outset to express our deep appreciation to the delegation of Belarus for their tireless efforts in realizing this important event, United Nations for a Family-Friendly World, on the occasion of the International Day of Families. We also associate ourselves with the statement delivered by Belarus on behalf of the Group of Friends of the Family. The observance of this day by all of us here at the United Nations reflects the importance that we, the family of nations, place on families. We recall the central goals of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development focus on ending poverty, promoting shared economic prosperity, social development, and people's well-being while protecting the environment. We share the belief that family-oriented policies can contribute to the achievement of SDGs 1 to 5 relating to ending poverty and hunger, ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being, ensuring lifelong educational opportunities, and achieving gender equality. Malaysia attaches great importance on the family as an integral unit of Malaysian society. The government of Malaysia had launched the National Family Policy and Plan of Action in 2011. Formation and strengthening the family institution, fostering, internalizing, and practice of family values, and strengthening intergenerational ties are among the rationales behind the National Family Policy. The National Family Policy advocates the concept of family well-being based on family values such as caring, honesty, and equity, regardless of status, gender, and age. The National Family Policy is expected to be the catalyst in encouraging all stakeholders to emphasize the family perspective in all planning, strategy, formulation, or development efforts. A further thrust of the policy is to ensure that laws, policies, procedures, and enforcement of laws prioritize the family perspective. This commitment is further reflected in the emphasis placed on the family in Malaysia's nation building and national development. The family in this regard is regarded as the basic social unit that provides the human capital for development and ensures the continuity of mankind. Based on identified indicators, a Family Well-being Index, FWI, has been developed to measure the current state of well-being of the family. This index has also been used in new policy formulation, planning the implementation of future research and expansion of existing programs. We further share the view that the family is the natural unit and environment to advance the social and economic well-being of all its members, as well as nurturing and protecting children. We cannot overemphasize the significant role of the family in the preservation of cultural identity, tradition, morals, heritage, and value system. In conclusion, we cannot afford to overlook the important role played by the family in our efforts to achieve the goals of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. I thank you, Madam Moderator.
I thank the Deputy Permanent Representative of Malaysia for your statement and intervention, and of course we thank Malaysia for its commitment to the family, its national family policy measures, and of course ensuring very important measures such as equality and equity throughout its agenda, and the family through research programs, and of course strong policy that Malaysia is undergoing and taking. So thank you very much, and we thank Malaysia again for its solidarity. I have the distinct honor and pleasure of inviting the distinguished representative of Iran. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I also join previous speakers in appreciating Permanent Mission of Belarus for organizing this event. Each and every individual has inevitable and intrinsic connection with the concept of the family. Actually, our family experiences remain with us throughout our lifespan. The influence that family bears on us to a large extent defines our character and shapes who we are and how we behave. This is the most durable and significant influence that a social institution may have on a person. For centuries, strong and stable societies were by and large measured by the strength and stability of their family institution. However, to a myriad of reasons, people have started losing touch with the original concept of the family. While no viable replacement is put forward, the concept of the family is almost destructed in some societies. As the rate of divorce is increasing globally, the average age of marriage is also shooting up because of economic difficulties as well as cultural shifts at the global level. On the other hand, redefinition of the marriage and family and expanding or mixing them up with other terms, contracts, and concepts have led to confusion and uncertainty. Such trends have put the family and the concept of marriage under threat and attack. Against all the odds, and notwithstanding the ongoing risks that are challenging the family, it continues to be the basic and primary provider, being it physical, economic, and spiritual support. Still, it is relevant to say that no sound and healthy society can be claimed without a healthy family institution. Best interest of children can still be best served within the framework of the family. Their academic and lifelong success begins at home. Studies constantly confirm that children raised within the framework of the family enjoy higher academic achievement, better emotional health, fewer behavioral problems, and exposed to lower risk of substance abuse. Even from a purely economic point of view, family is the most practical and prudent option towards achieving sustainable development. While social and economic costs of the family disintegration are beyond endurance of any single country, exclusion of the family from the framework of sustainable development would be highly ill-advised and risky. The family, as the natural and fundamental group unit of society, is entitled to protection by society and the state, and as also reflected indeed in front of us, this message, as recognized also clearly by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, is still extremely valid and pertinent. The family is a central player and contributor when it comes to achieving development goals, including goals and targets of 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Implementation of both 2030 Agenda and other development goals can be expedited and become, even economically speaking, more prudent through policies that promote the role and stance of the family in the societies, especially should we leave no one behind. A strengthened family institution will certainly contribute in the flourishing of the human person and ultimately well-being of our societies. Member states and UN bodies are therefore expected to explore ideas on harnessing potentials of the family as a critical player towards achieving sustainable development goals. We may also need to systematically measure and collect data on the economic loss that countries suffer because of exclusion of the family or its weakening. In conclusion, it is our conviction that we need to cherish and highlight the support and comfort that the family generously continues offering to us. We reiterate the call that the family should not be left behind. I thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished representative of Iran for, of course, signaling out the warning signs that are so relevant and so real, very real, but of course also giving us the hope yet again and the potential possibility for ensuring the natural family and its future. And we thank Iran for its solidarity as well. Thank you so much. I now have the honor and pleasure of inviting the distinguished representative of Tajikistan. You have the floor.
Madam Chair, distinguished friends of the family, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by extending my delegation's appreciation to the permanent missions of Belarus, Egypt, Qatar, and civil society organizations on the family for their leadership in promotion of the natural concept of the family and organizing such a special high-level event. Today's event provides us an opportunity to discuss the ways of strengthening the role of the family and its protection, adoption of the natural family policies at all levels in order to secure and promote the prosperous future for the family and all its members, in particular children. The family in Tajikistan, as the foundation of society, is under the protection and a special attention of the state, because addressing the issues of demography, public health, education, increasing the economic and social aspects of the state becomes possible through the support of the family. Along with the constitutional measures from the first years of independence, taking into account the value of the national culture, strengthening the foundations of family and family support are recognized as one of the priority directions of the state policy of Tajikistan. The family, as the natural and fundamental group unit of society, is important for Tajikistan and taking into account the urgency of the problems that the concept of the family has faced with, the year of 2015 was declared the Year of Family in Tajikistan, which aimed to enhance the role of the family in society, development of culture of family relations, as well as its preservation as a constant value of the national culture. Tajikistan expresses its assurances that the family can also contribute to eradicating hunger, achieving universal primary education, promoting gender equality, and empowering women, reducing child mortality, improving maternal health, and combating HIV, AIDS, malaria, and other diseases. In conclusion, I would like to congratulate all with the International Day of Families and confirm that Tajikistan fully supports the annual G77 initiative on the International Year of the Family. Thank you very much.
Thank very much the distinguished representative from Tajikistan and for all of the interventions so far. And now I'd like to ask if there are any other member states that would like to make an intervention. And hearing none, this concludes this portion of the event, and we're going to move on to the civil society statements. So it is my real honor to present to you Austin Ruse, the president of CFAM, the Center for Family and Human Rights, based here in New York and Washington. And Austin, you have the floor.
For me and my organization to participate in this conference, we congratulate our friends at Belarus and all the other member states who have created this body, the group of Friends of the Family. We're delighted that it has happened, and we're fully committed to supporting all the work that you do. It is really wonderful to be here and to see delegations that we've worked with since 1997 when my organization was founded. I'm just delighted to see our friend Grigory here from Capitol. He has been an inspiration to us since we have known him now several years. I see, again, our friends from Belarus, Ambassador Depkunis. Thank you so much for all that you do for the family. I'm delighted that Qatar is so involved in this. My organization was involved in the Doha Declaration on the Family way back in 2004, a remarkable document signed by 125 countries. Our friend from Iraq is not here. I'm delighted that she is with us. I see Sudan is here. At Cairo +5, the ambassador from Sudan took the floor around midnight that night, on the final night, and saved the document with regard to the family. And I will never forget his bravery. I'm delighted that Nigeria is here. We have followed your example and your bravery on all of these issues for a very long time. Nicaragua, we have worked with your delegation for almost 20 years, and one thing that you have taught us is that these issues don't necessarily have to be left-right issues. They can be issues that unite us all. And Saudi Arabia. I'm so pleased that Saudi Arabia is involved in this. At the very first Habitat Conference, Saudi Arabia intervened at the 11th hour and saved that document with regard to the family. So it is an honor for my organization to be among brave people standing up for things that unite us all, which is the natural family. I'm here to announce the formation of a new coalition called Civil Society for the Family. There are 165 members of the coalition from all over the world that have signed a document in support of the natural family and your efforts. The coalition will grow to 500 soon and then to 1,000, and we are committed to bringing as many of them here as we possibly can to support your efforts, because we know the tremendous pressure that you are under with regard to these, sadly, controversial issues. We're up against something really powerful, and that is the sexual revolution. which began before the French Revolution and has continued down to this present day. There are those who genuinely believe that the family is a patriarchal prison where pleasure and freedom go to die. And we know that when the family is harmed, we know that chaos ensues. And we see this in our country. We see this in the streets of Los Angeles. We see it in the streets of Baltimore. We see it in the streets of Washington, D.C., where I live. And so when the sexual revolution wins, body counts occur. And tyrants have always known that the real enemy to what they want is the destruction of the family. And that is how they get to the individual. So we all stand with you in defense of the family, in defense of traditional morality, something that we all share. I know that in my heart. And I will heed the words of Gregory earlier. We will come to Geneva to help you more and more. And we are committed to helping all of you here. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart and all of my colleagues.
Austin, thank you so very much. And of course, great thanks to CFAM, the CFAM team, for all the work that you have put into making today's event possible and happen, and it's happening so beautifully. So really, hats off to you and your team, and of course, together with member states. And thank you so much, and congratulations, and for announcing the Coalition of Civil Society for the Family. Wonderful work. Congratulations. I now have the pleasure to invite Ms. Sharon Slater, President of Family Watch International, to take the floor. Family Watch, like CFAM, is well known to many of us here at the UN. Sharon, it is my pleasure to give you the floor.
Thank you. Madam Chair, Your Excellencies, distinguished government officials, and friends of the family everywhere. It is my privilege and honor to issue this brief statement on behalf of Family Watch International and the United Nations Family Rights Caucus, a coalition of organizations working to ensure that the family and family values are protected in all UN agreements and UN consensus documents. The UN Family Rights Caucus currently has members, organizations, and individuals in over 160 countries. And the one thing that unites us all is our understanding that the strength and well-being of each nation largely depends on the stability and the strength of its families. Without the family, there is no sustainable development. This is why the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and no less than 5 binding UN treaties, including the CRC, the ICSCR, the ICCPR, the Disabilities Treaties, and many other UN consensus documents and resolutions, all obligate states to protect the natural family. This is also why 110 national constitutions recognize the family as a fundamental unit, cell, or nucleus of society. We commend the UN Human Rights Council for the adoption of the Protection of the Family Resolution. This historic resolution that we supported from its inception invites states to mainstream the promotion of family-friendly policies as an important cross-cutting issue in the goals and targets in the 2030 Agenda. The Family Resolution also warns that the contribution of the family in the society in the achievement of development goals continues to be largely overlooked and underemphasized, and it calls upon member states to take into account the role of the family as a contributor to sustainable development and the need to strengthen family policy development in ongoing efforts to achieve the development goals. For this reason, the UN Family Rights Caucus has issued a petition signed by over 150,000 individuals from multiple faiths, cultures, and backgrounds in every region of the world that calls upon UN member states to mainstream a family perspective in each of the Sustainable Development Goals and targets, and to analyze the impact of all laws, policies, and programs on family stability and autonomy. Family Watch International and the UN Family Rights Caucus also supported the Declaration on the Rights of the Children that the children so beautifully presented today. and we are deeply concerned about the global assault on the health and innocence of children through comprehensive sexuality education programs that sexualize children and violate the rights of parents to guide the education of their children, especially in sexual matters. We would strongly urge each of you here to go to our website at comprehensivesexualityeducation.org to watch a powerful documentary that outlines this assault on children and invite all present to join us in stopping this war on children and our families. If we want to promote the health and well-being of children, then we must protect the rights of children and the family. If we want to lift people out of poverty, to promote gender equality, protect women and girls from violence, abuse, and exploitation, then we must strengthen family stability. If we want to create productive and creative contributors to sustainable development in every nation, then we must focus on the family. If we want to eradicate HIV/AIDS, malaria, and other devastating diseases, then we must fortify the family and enhance its ability to protect and educate its members. And finally, if we want true sustainable development during the next 15 years, we can no longer ignore the most valuable resource of all, the families of the world. Now is the time to put the family at the center of the UN's Global 2030 Development Goals, because as the family goes, so go the children, so go the nations, so goes the world. Thank you.
Sharon, thank you so very much for your very relevant and astute remarks, and specifically for highlighting, of course, the rights of the child and therefore the rights of the parents who are, of course, rearing these beautiful children. And as a very important key sponsor, we thank you so much for your contribution in making today happen, along with CFM and other very important NGOs and, of course, member states. So thank you again. Let me stress that over 150 civil society organizations from all over the world have signed on to support today's event. These organizations work in national and international fora, monitoring and impacting policy through a family-friendly lens, equipping policymakers with important research to assist their work. We will also hear from some of these organizations that we are privileged to today. We want to hear from all of you. We have about 5, perhaps 6 speakers, and we have less than 20 minutes. So I kindly and graciously ask you to limit your interventions to about 3 minutes, if possible. I give the floor now to Father Shenan Bouquet, President of Human Life International. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is first and foremost a great privilege to be with you today. I want to thank the member states for your presence here today and also for your support. Human Life International has been working around the world now for nearly 44 years and working as an educational apostolate on the ground, working with the local government, local ecclesiastical communities, and trying to support and sustain a culture of life. And recently in my trip to Belarus, I experienced a true and remarkable event, and that is the growth and the support of the family and many organizations working, a great sign of hope and a great sign of positive change. And this is my experience that I'm seeing around the world, where there are great signs and there are many people working diligently to really support the family, to protect the family, and to sustain the family. And as we just heard so beautifully, it is true, as the family goes, so goes society. And many of the struggles that we see within society today are a direct consequence of the attack against the natural family. Madam Moderator, just as you experienced in your opening comment, I come from a very large family, and it was within my family structure that those values, those character values, those virtues, those moral characters and ethical practices were learned and challenged. And so it is in the family that we see the opportunity for a society to flourish, to prosper. and to truly be free and find true happiness and harmony among nations. But today, what I also see on a sad note is the continual, not just soft totalitarian tactics, but blatant totalitarian tactics. And we see this not only here, sadly, within this nation, but we see it globally. And I would challenge all of us here, especially the member states, to continue to raise your voices, to speak courageously, to challenge the systems that we see in front of us, the policies, and all the issues that are affecting family life. We have an obligation, a duty in this body to protect the family and to allow parents to truly educate their children as the primary educators and first educators of their children. So again, I thank you for this opportunity. It is indeed an honor to be with you and to hear such wonderful interventions and to also hear such great work being done. It is indeed a challenge that lies before us. And I'll leave you with this. This occurred in the Philippines a few years ago. The joy of meeting a mother of 13 children. And having come from a family where my father is one of 17, I know what it is to be raised in a large family. And she said, "My greatest treasure are my children. My children are all over the world. They are lawyers, they are teachers, they are working in political systems, they are doctors, priests, nuns." She just listed all of them. She says, "All 13 want me to move where they live, but I'm only one woman. But I am so blessed because of my children. They are indeed my greatest treasure." And I think that is something that we must protect, the beauty of family life. So thank you very much, Madam Moderator, for allowing me to speak and for being here today.
Father Bouquet, thank you so much for your very inspiring intervention today. Very, very meaningful. Thank you. And, it's no different, and to concur with you, it's no different or how with the growing megacities, for example, the policymakers of member states are understanding that it's time to work with the mayors of these cities because they have the beat on the ground. It's no different with the parishes and the priests and the mothers and the fathers, that this family agenda really is an all-inclusive agenda. So thank you so much. I now have the honor of giving the floor to Mr. Peter Sprigg of Family Research Council. You have the floor.
Good afternoon. My name is Peter Sprigg. I'm a senior fellow for policy studies at the Family Research Council in Washington, D.C. And we seek to promote family, faith, and freedom both in the United States and around the world. And I hope the representative of Zimbabwe will forgive me for occupying his or her seat. I'd like to thank all those involved in this event, and we're delighted to join with you in celebrating the family. We also join in urging that both civil society and member states continue to meet their obligation under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and other international agreements to provide the family the natural and fundamental group unit of society with both the protection and the support to which it is entitled. The family is just to repeat some of the themes already articulated so eloquently by other speakers, the family is the natural group unit of society because its existence is rooted in the order of nature itself. Specifically, it is rooted in the natural relations between a man and a woman, which produce children as their natural fruit. It is because of this role in the propagation of the species that virtually all human societies have formalized such relationships in the social institution we call marriage. Attempts to create a new definition of marriage which distances it from the natural origins are not consistent with the protection and support of the family. The family is the fundamental group unit of society because it predates all other forms of government. Therefore, it is not the place of government to redefine or interfere with the natural family. Although governments can and should offer protection and support to the family, the reality is that successful natural families provide the foundation for the existence of successful and effective government, and not vice versa. In particular, the protection and support of the natural and fundamental unit of the family will be essential to the achievement of the UN's 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. An abundance of social science research, both in the United States and internationally, has shown that a man and woman united in marriage and the children produced by such a union and raised in a household with their married mother and father are happier, healthier, and more prosperous than those who live in any other household situation. There is no government safety net that can compensate for the loss of the natural family. Let me close with a plug. The Marriage and Religion Research Institute, MARRI, or MARY for short, was founded at the Family Research Council, and its website at marry.us, marri.us, has both original research and research syntheses which describe the social science case for the family. In particular, I would direct your attention to an address delivered by my friend and colleague Patrick Fagan to another UN event last year titled "The Family, Agent of Economic Development and the Fundamental Safety Net." Again, I thank you for your commitment to the family and the opportunity to participate in this event.
Peter, thank you so much for the very valid points you give to us today. Just to move on quickly forward for the sake of time, I give now the floor to Ms. Julie Colton of LDS Charities.
Good afternoon, Your Excellencies and distinguished guests and friends. My name is Julie Colton, and I represent LDS Charities, the humanitarian arm of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or often known as the Mormons. As most everyone here is aware, the family is central to LDS beliefs. Many years ago, when I completed my college education, I chose to become a mother, and I'm so glad that I did. I had 6 wonderful children, later embraced 3 stepchildren, and today I'm the grandmother of 26 grandchildren, with 1 more on the way. And it has been the greatest joy of my life, and I won't tell you all the things they're doing, but obviously they're having children. Just over 20 years ago, our church issued a statement, "The Family, a Proclamation to the World." It outlines our beliefs on the family, and I'd like to read just a few excerpts from it. It states that the family is ordained of God. Marriage between a man and a woman is essential to his eternal plan. Children are entitled to birth within the bonds of matrimony and to be reared by a father and a mother who honor marital vows with complete fidelity. It continues with successful marriages and families are established and maintained on principles of faith, prayer, repentance, forgiveness, respect, love, and compassion, work, and wholesome recreational activities. And fathers and mothers are obligated to help one another as equal partners. These beliefs mesh with many foundational documents of the United Nations. For example, the family is defined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and international law as the natural and fundamental group unit of society and recognized as the natural environment for the growth and well-being of all its members and particularly children. International law further establishes the right of men and women of marriageable age to marry and to found a family. The choice of becoming a parent should be viewed as a significant contribution to society and valued as such. It is within the family that morals and values are taught, and where children best gain the knowledge and skills to be productive members of society as well as agents of change. It is within the family that the seeds of the capital of the heart are sown, later to be harvested in good works and lives of service. Unlocking this heart capital is critical if there is any hope of achieving the SDGs. In fact, UN delegates have emphasized that empowering people requires empowering families as agents of development and recognizes that family policies are an integral part of an inclusive development approach. We believe that strengthening the family is essential for higher education rates, improved health and welfare, and poverty reduction within society. While circumstances may create environments where children do not or cannot live with their natural parents, we hope that the UN mandate holders, member states, and civil society will increase their efforts to create a platform where families can be strengthened and children can be raised in a loving environment where they can be given the moral compass necessary to be law-abiding citizens and positive contributors to society. In all circumstances, children's rights must be protected and valued. Although our beliefs on the family are very clear, we recognize that not everyone holds those same beliefs. Therefore, we emphasize that respectful coexistence is possible among those with differing values. We must reject persecution of any kind and embrace goodwill. We assert that responsible citizens and officers of government everywhere should promote those measures designed to maintain and strengthen the family as the fundamental unit of society. In conclusion, I am so grateful for countless good parents across the world of all faiths who lovingly care for their children, and for all of you here who have been actively engaged in supporting the family. It is our hope that we will continue to do so with the greatest strength we possess. We must do all we can to strengthen families and unlock the capital of the heart. Thank you.
Julie, thank you so much. The family is ordained of God. Very beautifully said. Very quickly moving forward, Mr. Gregory Mertz, Hatzoer, and I believe, of course, Citizen Go. Please, the floor is yours.
Today representing Association Osteoir, along with our sister organization, Citizen Go Foundation, in such a forum. I want to thank CFAM, Family Watch International Foreign Service Fellowship, along with all the other organizers of this event, including the sponsoring 25 member states, for making this historic occasion possible. What an honor it is to give a statement on behalf of these great NGOs at the very first high-level event celebrating the family. It's such an occasion like this that really pulls on my heartstrings to reiterate the important role family plays in society. It serves a function like no other, and what it accomplishes can be compared to nothing else. I say this while speaking on behalf of our 4.3 million members worldwide and on behalf of the NGOs I represent today. Our fear is the United Nations is missing a tremendous opportunity to use the strength of the family to solve global issues. Instead, the definition of the family is routinely under attack, and the United Nations ignores its obligation to protect the family as called for in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But I'm here today because I know firsthand what society can accomplish, upheld by a family formed by the union of a man and a woman. It was exactly 2 years ago on this day with UN Family Rights Caucus that nearly 150,000 of our members signed a petition asking the United Nations not only to recognize but take measures to both safeguard and strengthen the role of the family during its work in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals by establishing a family perspective to achieve these goals and its assigned targets. We firmly agree with the statement made in the 2014 UN Commission on Social Development and Family Resolution. It is the family that will play a key role in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. It's important that we individuals, civil society, member states, and the United Nations as a body do not take the definition of family for granted. We know what the bond between a husband and wife and their children can accomplish. It is not only for the prosperity and health of the individual family, but as a world and society. We know family does indeed play an essential role in eradicating poverty and hunger. It does indeed play an essential role in achieving universal primary education, also promoting gender equality and empowering women. It does and will most certainly be the reason for reducing child mortality, improving maternal health, and combating HIV, AIDS, malaria, and other diseases. I thank all the NGOs and member states represented here today. It comes with great honor today to stand by the definition of the family and celebrate how family has bettered society and how it will in the future. Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of Osteoir, Citizen Go, and our 4.3 million members worldwide.
Gregory, thank you so much, and thank you for reiterating the call to the United States, to the United Nations, and of course its member states to promote and further protect the family. Final speaker, if I can ask you under 2 minutes, please. We are past time. Ms. Lola Villard of Institute for Family Policy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. for giving me this last-minute opportunity to contribute to this important dialogue. There is an emerging concept I would like to bring here today, which is the concept of integral ecology. Integral ecology means that the book of nature is one and indivisible, and therefore the human being is an essential part of it. Nature has certain rules that we have not created, but that were there before us, and that we have to get to know and respect whenever we intervene on the environment. Experience has shown that when we don't respect those rules of nature, the long-term consequences can be disastrous. Human beings are not apart from nature. We can therefore talk about a human ecology, which has certain rules that we have not created, but that we should also get to know and respect. And at the very heart of the human ecology is the family. We have not created it. It was nature itself that provided it as our natural habitat. There is solid evidence showing that human beings thrive better when their natural habitat is respected. Therefore, we can't achieve sustainable development if we don't respect human ecology itself. Family policies are aimed at supporting all men or women raising children, regardless their situation, a mother alone, broken families, and so on, because they need and deserve support. But it has to be highlighted that the natural family based on a stable commitment of father and mother provides the best outcome for society, and therefore needs particular recognition. Let me join those that have spoken here, encouraging member states to follow the several UN resolutions and recommendations and implement a family perspective in their public policies as the best way to foster a healthy society and achieve a true sustainable development. Thank you.
Lola, thank you so much for your intervention, of course, for your focus on the human ecology. And here's why I say that. Firstly, I am, and we are, edified to witness member states and civil society organizations dedicated to advancing the cause of the family and to ensuring that the United Nations system will help states to fulfill their obligations to the family, especially in the implementation of the 2030 Development Agenda, the Universal Development Agenda that intends to leave no one behind. Let us remember and let us humbly assert that the family is a human life support system whose ecological and anthropological dimensions are rooted in and ensure human survival itself, providing the promise of the preservation and success of future generations and societies, our vast, rich cultures, and the great nations of our world. I like to end with a quote from Pope Francis. It is therefore essential that we foster a new human ecology. I thank you all so very much for your time and your participation. May God bless you, and may the family live forever.